We're continuing what we did on the first 3 days of this week. And that is a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991 on this week's Torah portion, which is Vayishlach, but also it's a preparation for the 19th day of Kislev, which the 19th day of Kislev was the day about 200 years ago that the first Rebbe of Chabad got out of prison, and he was imprisoned by his enemies, religious Jews, that did not want these ideas of Hasidut to be successful, to be disseminated and advertised and learned by the Jewish people. They really believed that these ideas of Hasidut were destructive and they would destroy Judaism and they would destroy the world. But mostly they believed that it would destroy their status. There's the status as superior Jews, which they were superior Jews. These were Jews that learned Torah and they were experts in the Torah, but they were lacking this, what we're just talking about, total surrender to the creator of the universe. The enemies of the first Rebbe of Chabad were Jews that wanted to remain superior. They didn't want to bring Judaism to the masses. They didn't want to bring Judaism to the non-Jews. 7 Noahide commandments. They wanted to remain pristine. And they put the first Rebbe in of Chabad because he had these ideas of Hasidut, the oneness of God and the goodness of God and the uniqueness of the Jewish people and the job of the Jewish people to transform the whole world to godliness. They didn't like these ideas. And that even the biggest sinner could fix himself up in one instant, just to turn to the essence of God. And even the greatest, holiest person can in 1 second mess the whole thing up. They didn't like all these ideas. And so eventually, it became so serious that they really believed that the first Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Shner Zalman, that he was an enemy of Judaism and of the whole world and of Torah. And they slandered him to the Tsarist regime, and he was put into prison for 53 days and interrogated and released when the Tsar's men realized that this man was a holy man and that he had an amazing message and that he was not dangerous at all, and etc. So the Rebbe saw this as a victory, not just for himself or for Chabad, but for the whole idea of Hasidut and Judaism and for the whole world. Okay, so the Rebbe explains that because the job of the Jews is to educate the whole entire world, all of mankind, as to what God really is and how much God really loves them and how God really is infinitely close to everyone, and that we have an obligation to appreciate this and consequently to love God with all of our hearts and all of our soul and all of our might, and how we can do it, and explaining how you can come to this levels of love and awe of God and fear of God and faith in God, and explaining to this. So the Rebbe said that's why the holiday of Yud Tet Kislev comes at the second half of the month. What's it got to do with the month? The holiday, the message of the holiday is a very beautiful one and a very powerful one. But what's it got to do with the second half of the month? When it falls, every holiday has to fall sometime, right? What's so? So the Rebbe points out that this holiday and also the holiday of Chanukah are really the only holidays in Judaism that fall on the second half of the month. Now, Judaism goes according to the moon. So the first half of the month, the first 15 days of the month, is when the moon is getting bigger and bigger. And the last day of the month, the 30th day of the month, is when there's no moon at all. The moon gets smaller. So the first half of the month, the moon gets bigger and bigger, and the numbers go up of the days of the month. And the second half of the Jewish month, the moon gets smaller and smaller. And surprisingly, the numbers continue to go up. The numbers should come down because we count according to the moon. So the Rebbe explains that really the numbers go up because that's talking about the essence of the moon, the source of the light of the moon and the sun. It says nowadays the moon receives from the sun, but on the first day of creation, when God, it was the fourth day of creation, on the fourth day of creation, when God created the sun and the moon, they both received from the same source. The sun and the moon were equal. And that's what's revealed now in the second half of the month. The first half of the month is revealed how the moon receives from the sun. The second half of the month, the moon doesn't receive so much from the sun. The moon comes closer and closer to the sun, to the point where both the moon and the sun receive from the same point. And that's why we don't appreciate it. We see only darkness. But really, the essence is really shining then. It's too high for us to realize. God hid it. But that's what's revealed the second half of the month. So the second half of the month is revealing the source of light for the sun and the moon. And that's why the holiday of Yutet Kislev occurs in the second half of the month, because the Jewish people, they count according to the moon, and the essence of the moon is revealed in the second half of the month when the light of the moon gets less and less. The apparent light of the moon gets less and less, but the essence light of the moon gets more and more. Says the Rebbe, that's especially the idea of Kislev, the holiday, the month of Kislev. Kes means to be covered, and Lamed Vav indicates revelation. 36, it's 36 is Lamed Vav, is 36. That's the numerical value of the word Eile, these, to be revealed. And it's also hints at the 6 emotions of God. That's how God reveals himself. He creates the world 6 days. It's a revelation of God. Each one containing 6, that's 36. So the whole month of Kislev is that what is previously concealed, case covered over, Lev is revealed. In other words, everything is potentially revealed. Even the most hidden things are revealed in the month of Kislev. So that's why this holiday falls in the month of Kislev, because it's the month of revelation, what's concealed. And the second half is even also the same message, revealing what is concealed. Okay, again, just to make a reset of this whole thing, reset. The whole world depends on the Torah. The whole world. Africa, Europe, Asia, Antarctica, the whole world depends on the Torah. And if there is life on other planets, other galaxies, whatever, that also depends on the Torah. The whole business was created through the Torah. And the Torah was only given here in this world to the Jews. And the very existence of the world right now depends on the Torah. That's what we believe anyway. That's why the Jews are so special, why the Jews just don't go away. Because the whole world depends on them, whether they know it or not, whether the Jews believe it or not, or they oppose it or not. That's the fact. That's how God created the world. I mean, it is pretty strange that the Jews just don't go away. I mean, the Jews have been wandering around for 2,000 years. They didn't have any country. They didn't have their own land. They didn't have anything, and they still exist. Jews, no matter where, the Jews that are in Yemen and the Jews that are in Russia and the Jews that don't look the same. They have the Torah, but the Torah was only, how do you say, a cause to hate the Jews and to kill the Jews. Zionism stood up and said, let's forget about the Torah. We'll act like everybody else. And then that's going to put an end to anti-Semitism. We won't be different. We'll be like everybody else, right? We see how that worked out. We see it didn't work out so well. Nowadays, people hate Jews because they're Jews, and also they hate them because they're Zionists. Given another reason, so why do they still exist 2,000 years with no country? That doesn't make any sense. And every Jew is different, right? And there's always been I think the majority of the Jews that did not do the Torah, they did not do the commandments, usually just a handful of them. That's the holiday of Hanukkah. It's just like there was only 13 Jews that kept the Torah. How could it possibly be? And they still stayed together. Why did they stay together? And they try to break up and they try to leave. The Jews, when they got out of Egypt, the first thing is, let's go back to Egypt. Let's go back. And Moses said, let's go into the land of Israel. We don't want to go in the land of Israel. We don't want to get the Torah. Whatever Moses said, we want the opposite. Right? The Jewish people, and nevertheless, here we are. Jewish people, 2,000 years. Why? It says because the reason is because the whole world depends on the Jews. God wants the world to be here. No matter what, doesn't, even though the world wants to commit suicide, God won't allow them to do it. God wants the Jews to be here, and they're always going to be here. Says the Rebbe, but what is the Jew? What's the essence of the Jew? The soul of the Jewish people is taught in Hasidut. It's the only place you can learn about it. The soul of the Jewish people is brought through Hasidut. It's taught. It's an organized a way of teaching and understanding what God is, what the Jews are, what the Torah, Hasidut. And that was revealed on Yud Tet Kislev. Just like the Jews are the smallest in the world, the whole world depends on them. So it's also Judaism depends on Yud Tet Kislev. It's the smallest one day of the year, 365th, and the whole Judaism depends on it. So it says, let's explain this why. Why is it the holiday of holidays is after, unlike all the other holidays, is in the second half of the month, after when the moon is getting smaller. The special thing about what's called the New Year's Day and the giving of the Torah, Matan Torah of Chassidut, is called the holiday of holidays, Yud Tet Kislev, that in its beginning, the revelation of the Torah of Moshiach, and the reasons of the Torah, the sod, secret essence of what the Torah is, and that's what's called the new Torah that the Moshiach is going to bring. New Torah means even one letter of the Torah, one commandment won't be changed, but we'll feel the soul of the Torah. That's what it means. It'll be like brand new. Incomparable. The Moshiach is going to reveal the essence of the Torah, which is going to be incomparable to the revelation that was in the giving of the Torah. Like the rabbis say, Torah she'adam lamad b'olam hazeh, the Torah that we're learning now is like nothing. It's like, how do you say, wind compared to the Torah of the Mashiach. And we can see why. 40 days after the Jews got the Torah at Mount Sinai, as soon as they thought Moses wasn't coming, just a couple hours after they thought Moses wasn't going to come down from Mount Sinai, Moses went up on Mount Sinai. 40 days later, they thought he was supposed to come. They miscalculated when he was supposed to come down, and they thought it was an earlier date. And when that, according to their calculations, that date arrived, and Moses didn't come down, they said, "What are we going to do?" Moses didn't come here. He didn't come. So one person said, "Hey, let's make a golden calf and worship it." And the Jewish people said, "Wow, why didn't we think of that? That is a great idea." And somebody said, "Hey, 1 second, we just heard from God, don't worship idols." We all heard it. Our souls jumped out of our bodies. We all heard directly from God. I am God that took you out of Egypt. Don't worship any other gods. Didn't we all hear it? And everyone said, "Yeah, we heard it, but that was 40 days ago. That's not, we're in a different situation now." And you got to, sort of flow with the time. You got to sort of, say, be with the, you have to be modern. You have to be normal. Moses is not here. But God is here. So what do you mean God is here? Mount Sinai, when we heard God speak, then God was here. Our souls jumping out of our bodies with it. That's God. But you see God, you hear God anywhere then. But we do see the golden calf, and the golden calf is really, how do you say, really appealing. Really appealing. And so all the feeling that they had from giving of the Torah and the godliness and the inspiration and everything, they had the Torah, they had God, they had the manna was falling from heaven, they had water from a rock, but it didn't really go into their insides. They felt themselves. And therefore they worship the golden calf. In the future, it's going to be a Torah that you won't be able to forget. It's not going. There won't be any possibility of idolatry. That's why it says all of the religions in the world will just automatically stop. They'll stop to realize that they just made something much better. Not that they're going to get punished for what they did. They didn't know any better. The Jews didn't teach them any better. The Jews wanted to be with them, right? And the Jews envied them, right? You have 2.5 billion Christians. Why we're just so small? They must be right. Can't. A little sort of a remnants, a wisp of that golden calf is still lingering around. It's still up in the air. It's still ringing in our ears and in our soul. Maybe golden calf is not so bad. Right? Maybe, who knows? A little doubt of that golden calf. That's the same. It's the same war as Jacob and Esau. But in the future, when Moshiach comes, we'll feel the essence of what the Torah is. We'll feel that God and the Torah are one. God and the Torah and the Jewish people are one, and everyone in the world will see it. They'll realize that they just made a mistake, that their forefathers that made up their religions, whoever they were, lied to them. It's a sheker nachalu avotayim. It's a prophecy from Isaiah. But it'll be a new Torah, a new Torah that will not be able to be misinterpreted or misunderstood. The main novelties that are going to be the main thing in the days of the Mashiach, even more than the giving of the Torah, it's going to be what's called a wedding. It's the consummation of the wedding. Like it says, Mashal HaMelech, it's like a king. Shekadesh Isha, that he married a woman. And he gave her a little gift. And since he came to actually fulfill the wedding, what do they call it? How do they say? To have relations with her. So he gave her a big gift, like a husband. Kach, also the same thing. This world, since the Torah, it's like an engagement. We stood under the wedding canopy with God. We're engaged, but we have not yet consumed the wedding. That's what it's called, consumed. Like it says, God said, I will engage you. You will be betrothed to me forever. So God only gave the moon to the Jewish people. Like it says, the moon is yours. But in the days of the Mashiach will be the wedding. Like it says, the one who had sexual relations with you, with the unity of God, with the Jewish people, he is going to really make us what we really are. That's what the Jewish people really are. We'll be God's wife. But Otosha, at that time, God will give the Jews everything, like it says, Amaskilim Yaziru Kazo Harakia. Those who understand will shine like the splendor of the heavens. Matzdike Rabim, those who benefit the multitudes, will shine like the stars forever. Then the Jewish people and God will be totally one. That's going to be actually the marriage. That will be in the days of the Mashiach. Mashiach will, in other words, Mashiach will cause every Jew to feel what a Jew really is. What is a Jew? What is this eternal thing which keeps the Jews going on forever? It's the same eternal feeling inside of every Jew that says, I'm a Jew. You can oppose it, you can hate it, you can deny it, but it's a fact. As then, when Mashiach comes, then will be the how do you say the goal of V'hoya or Levana. Then the sun, the light of the moon, will be the light of the sun. That the moon and the sun will receive from the same source. That the Jewish people, they will not just be like the moon that receives from the sun, that we receive from spirituality. Like it says nowadays, before the Mashiach, we'll receive from the Jewish people are compared to the moon. But the Jewish people will be like the sun. We will receive from the source. Most of them at the call, we receive everything. Also the sun in the sky. Kevin Shemidgaleh will be revealed that the Jewish people and God are one. So if you can't see God, you don't know what God is, in the future, you'll just look at a Jew. And you'll see a Jew, that's what God is. The manifestation of God's will, God's wisdom, God's pleasure in this physical world. Totally one. Excuse me. Yesh Lamar, we can say, She'inyan said, this is hinted at also. Again, like I said before, I brought this up a lot of times, but the Rebbe brings it up also in the 24th chapter of the Tanya, that the reason that when Daniel was thrown into the lion's den and the lions did not eat him up was because they saw the form of God on his face, on his being. In other words, they knew that harming Daniel was harming themselves. That Daniel was the face of the creator that's creating the lions, it's creating them. It's like a hungry lion biting its own, foot or something. They felt the creator, that Daniel was a reflection of the creator. He was an example of the creator. He was an example of what's going to be in the future. That's why it says in the Talmud that if the Moshiach is going to come from the dead, it's going to be Daniel. It says if he's going to come from the living, it's from in the Sanhedrin. Yeshlam, we can say, She'inyan said, this is hinted at, and when Rosh Hashanah and Matan Torah, that the New Year's Day and the giving of the Torah, and New Year's Day was the day the world was created, right? And Matan Torah was when the meaning of the world was given. So the creation day and the Torah day of Hasidut, it comes after the moon is full, when the moon is starting to get smaller. Why? That this is hinted at, is telling us Hashlemus, the Halavana, that the real true wholeness of the moon is not when the moon is shining, reflecting the sun. It's when the moon comes close to the sun and it becomes unified with the sun and becomes like the sun. Then the light of the sun and the moon are, so to speak, equal. When the moon is closest to the sun, that's when the moon is dark. That's why Yutet Kislev comes in the second half of the month to show that Chassidut is revealing not just reflected light of God, spirituality, but it's revealing the essence of God, the source of spirituality. In more detail, this year, remember the Rebbe was speaking, it's going to be like this year also. The Yutet Kislev is on the third day of the month, the third day of the week. Shemit Borech, that it is blessed from Shabbat, which this coming Shabbat will be on the 16th day. So on the 16th day of the month, that's when the month starts, the moon starts to get less and less. I want to say one small thing. When the Jewish people went across the sea, so it says that the sea split. And the Jewish people sang a song and they said, "This is God and I will praise him." So it explains in the Chassidut that what happened when the sea split, that all of the concealment, the sea conceals what's inside of it. All the spiritual worlds split. The spiritual worlds conceal God. It's like a ladder. They reveal God step by step, but still they're concealing what God really is. They're concealing God. And all these spiritual worlds, true, there's steps to get closer to God. It's like you're going to high school in order, high school mathematics, and then you go to freshman mathematics. But if you stay at the level of high school mathematics, you're never going to understand, physics or whatever these. The lower levels are steps to get to a higher level, but in the end, they conceal the essence. And what is the essence? So all of the heavens, as spiritual as they are, and how revealing they are, and how inspiring they are, but really they conceal God's essence. And so when the sea split, all the spiritual worlds went, and all the Jews said, "This is God revealed." Well, it's the same thing with the moon. The moon shining, that's like spirituality. And it gets more and more spirit, but that spirituality is just a creation. It conceals over the essence. And when that spirituality goes away, that's like when the moon gets less and less, so the essence is more and more revealed. So this Yutet Kislev is going to be on Tuesday. Tuesday means it's 3 days after the 16th day of Kislev. 16th day is when the moon is starting to get smaller. The moon is at its biggest at the 15th. That's the moon is starting to get smaller. And after, by the preparation that we have of the full moon, which is Erev Shabbat, the day before Shabbat, in other words, the ultimate spirituality of Judaism, that's when the moon is full. That's the preparation that we should know that now you appreciate the spiritual. Now let's start appreciating the source of the spiritual. And that's when the moon starts getting less and less. So Yutet Kislev is on the 3rd day of the week. Then comes the 4th day of the week. That's already the 20th day of Kislev. 20th day of Kislev. Ki b'yom hashlishi, on the 3rd day of the week. In other words, it's the 3rd day. B'yom hashlishi, Yom Talatai, the 3rd day. This is the 3rd day of the week, and we're now on the 3rd month of the year, Kislev, the winter year, starting from Tishrei, right? Starting from Tishrei. As the number 3 is Huchbal Tvito. When God created the world on the 3rd day, he said, God saw what he made and it was good. God saw what he's made and it was good. He said it twice. On the 2nd day of creation, God doesn't say. So the number 3 shows a double good. Good to heaven and good to the world, to the creations. This is the idea of a joining of the upper worlds and the lower worlds. Heaven and earth, the creation, the creator and the creation, the giver and the receiver, the moon and the sun and the moon. In other words, number 3 shows on a unity of the upper and the lower. Number 3. And if Yutet Kislev falls on number 3, so it's a hint, an additional incentive and also empowering that we can unite all of the creation, spiritual and physical, the sun and the moon. On the 4th day of this coming week, that's when the sun and the moon were created. On that day, the moon didn't receive from the sun. Both of them were equal. They had one crown. The 5th day of this coming week, that was when the blessing of all Chai was created. On the 6th day, that was when man was created, the animals, man was created. Ki tov, tov me'od. That's when God said it was very good. The world was very good. So here we see that on the 5th day, God created the fish, the birds, And the sixth day, he created the animals. And the last thing, he created man. And when it was all finished, God said everything was very, very good. But what does this come from? It comes from that third day when God said it was good. The unity of the creator and the creation. And that is all revealed in the month of Kislev. So what's the Rebbe trying to get at over here? The Rebbe is trying to tell us that what we see in the world is only the tip of the iceberg of reality. And there's all these spiritual worlds that are there. That's also, if you want to call it, the iceberg of reality. But then there's the creator himself, that he creates the whole entire business. And that's outside of tip of the iceberg and the body of the iceberg. That is really true reality. And that is what the Jewish people are here to reveal. To unite the spiritual and the physical. The spiritual is good. This world is not so good. This world is bad, alone, terrible. The spiritual worlds are good, but when you reveal the God in this physical world, then the world becomes very good. It becomes even better than the spiritual. And that's what Hasidut comes to bring. Hasidut comes to bring the source of all light into the world. And that's hinted at by all these hints that we have. The second half of the month, the name of the month is Kislev. It's given now on Yom, the third day of the month, etc. But it's coming to try to tell us that real reality that we want to reveal in this physical world is available. It's not only available. It's, how do you say, what the one would say? It's readily available. It's palatable. It's right there. That's what we're living in. That's what we're living for, is to make this world a truly very good place. Which means we have to ignore a lot of the temptations of the world and a lot of the apparent reality of this world. And we have to concentrate more on the true reality, which that's the godliness which is found in the Torah. And the Torah creates the world. God wants there to be a world. And we can also attach this to the Torah portion of this week. And this week, and this we're going to do, God willing, tomorrow. This we're going to do tomorrow. And I'll do the Yom Yom in a second. 1 second.